Hey there, it is me, your Queen Time Machine. And today is February 10th, 2026. And I caught you up on all of these Black History facts from day one until day nine. So today I'm going to give you days 10 through day 15. So we are going to get started right here, right now. We are talking about the parity of solidarity. So remember, that is the unity and the equality about something that we are coalescing around, that we are in agreement with, that we are saying we are going to align to ensure it happens. That's what I'm doing. And I'm just talking about his story, her story, our story, and their story. But when you look at this PowerPoint, I'm asking you, what do you see? Solidarity, you should know it by now. Come on. Symbiotic oneness, like mindedness, indivisibility, deliberate alignment, respecting individuality, travailing yearns, solidarity, symbiotic oneness, like minded indivisibility, deliberate alignment, respecting individuality, travailing yearns. Solidarity. So, what is a solidarity second? It's the ask that I am giving to you. I'm asking you for 1 second of solidarity for every 1 minute of my post. And yep, that first one was, I think, 93 minutes. So, all I asked for was a minute and a half of solidarity, just for us to align around global safety, peace, and justice for all. And when I say all, I mean all. And I never monitor, I never follow up. I'm just asking. And maybe you share this post or another, something else that's relevant, something that's going on that's important to you, a relevant link. Maybe you pause for a few seconds of meditation. Maybe you tell a friend. Maybe you celebrate hard and loud for those few seconds. Maybe you are engaging into mindfulness activities or simple positive silence to provide a personal reset of focus for yourself. But these are still just some suggestions. The facts, however, because there are some facts, the facts are that if we expose ourselves to light, to music, to laughter, to movement, to gratitude, to self affirmation and validation, to compassion, to acts of kindness, to a smile, a pause to speak something positive, to replace a negative thought, those automatic negative thoughts that flood us, they can all be done in seconds or in a few minutes. And they make a world of difference. Why? Because we are making a difference. Can we change the world towards positive social change 1 second at a time? Absolutely. And guess what? We already are. Thank you for standing with me. Some have been standing with me for years. Whether you're standing with Brenda, with Mama, with Grandma, whether you're standing with Dr. B, Dr. Brenda, the Queen Time Machine, she who has gone and come back more than one time, just stand with me because we have been changing the world, the furnace of it, not just the thermostat of it. 1 second at a time in 60-second increments, and now for a little bit longer, for a long time, for a better kingdom, a better queendom, all for better freedom. So that's what I'm asking you for. That's what a solidarity second is. Look and then look again. I talked to you about Black History Month, but what I am doing is I'm going to provide you my PowerPoint deck, and I'm going to provide it to you for the days that I'm covering in the post. And I'm just showing you that these are going to be the slides that you will get when you look at the post. So you're going to get the background slides for the solidarity second is you're going to recognize our 4 points. I'm going to send these to you because life is power. My whole point is we got to choose life And we got to know who we are, and we have to declare it. We have to know what's on our minds, and we have to express it. Do not let anyone take the liberty of expression away from you. And then we have to take the reins that we've been given. And the reins we've been given are reins of freedom, but we got to be willing to be freedom riders. We have to reign while we ride. And the choice is really to choose, because when we don't choose, then we've chosen to lose, and not choosing is a choice. So I'm asking you to make a choice and choose to align around those things that will ensure that creation rights remain the rights for which we fight. So we can't be surrendering. I gave you some data, and it's still the truth. I actually updated some of it, and that is this gap between length of life. It is very important. We have to look at the seconds in order for us to change a lifetime, because we're all changing lives, not just our own, but all those around us. And those that we never know, will never touch, that will never know that they breathe the same air that we do, but they do. So every second, when we look at this gap between suicide, which our white brothers and sisters do a better job at killing themselves, versus homicide, where our black brothers and sisters do a better job than our white brothers and sisters and our Hispanic and Asian brothers and sisters of killing each other. But the propensity in Black History Month is that Black people have a propensity to value their own life, but a propensity to take the lives of others. Well, that's a shift that needs to occur. So, I'm giving you that. I gave you the facts, and you can go in and you can look at it, but we can change it every second, because we're going to choose to win, and we're going to choose to live, and it ain't going to be suicide, it ain't going to be homicide. What is going to be is the elimination of genocide by choosing life and respecting ours, respecting others, and changing the face of entitlement. Life is power. I talked about this biota concept, and a biota is a population of individuals of the same species and geographic area. You hear more about animals and plants, but I want you to understand biota as it relates to being a person, because I'm talking about the individuals called a human species, and the shared geographic area is the earth. So that's what I mean when I say it. So then when we look at biota, and then we look at time, that's 60 seconds a minute, and 3,600 seconds an hour, and 86,004 in a day. And then 2,419,200 in a 4-week month, or 31,536,365 day calendar year. And what that ends up being, the sum of biota plus time equals power. Black power, white power, right power, our power to win. So positive versus negative. Don't surrender your mind to anybody, because can't nobody steal your mind. I know that you think they can, but really you got to surrender it. So keep it. How do you keep it? Well, be optimistic, be virtuous, be a winner, be self-reliant, because when you're self-reliant, then you can be free to be interdependent. And then you need to be faith-filled, because when we're negative, we're pessimistic, we're defeated, we're losers, and then we become totally dependent. If you want to lose the dependency on society, then become self-reliant and interdependent on it. If we learn how to stand our own ground, and then recognize that the ground that we stand is shared by somebody else, then our interdependence allows us to be self-reliant as a people. Can't be stolen. And then this whole rain thing is, we got to get our life back. I love Satchel Paige said, there ain't no man who can avoid being born average, but there ain't no reason why a man has to be common. And if a mind can't conceive it, my heart can believe it, and I know I can achieve it. And we still got Jesse Jackson with us today. So remove all excuses despite the barriers. Own your decision, but decide wisely because all decisions have consequences, good, bad, or indifferent. Take the time to plan and do it right the first time because there may not be time to do it again. There is still a gap in the lifespan of white people versus Black people. And when you adjust it for age and geographic, when we put the biota on the thing, then what you end up still seeing is a 13.77 year gap. And even when you put that around everywhere, because in the United States, that gap exists most in the DC area, averaging at about 5.7 years on the least end because the smallest gap exists in the New Mexico area. And you can look at this Centers of Disease Control and IHME, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. And these are reports that have changed. I went back and looked. This is post-COVID. This is 23 forward data. So go check it out. But we got to take the reins back. And we're united by faith and faith. Faith and faith. And I gave you some word about that. So you're going to have these slides every single day that I come before you in the month of February. I will not only speak the stats to you of Black history, I'm going to give you these same foundational slides because these slides are going to spill over into other topics of discussion that your queen will share with you. So do you know that a week from tomorrow is Lent and a week from today is Fat Tuesday? You got your pastures, all that stuff. So we got some stuff we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing the Black facts, but then there's going to be a parallel track of getting us where we're looking at that Hebraic brother and sister timeline as we're looking at leading up to Passover as well as leading up to Passion Week. So you got some things your queen gonna be hanging out with you for a while. So I'm just going to let you know again, I'm still level setting of what you're going to get when you receive a package from me. When one door of happiness closes, another opens, but often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has been opened for us, and that came from somebody that was deaf, that was blind, and that was dumb, Helen Keller. A man does what he must in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality, because he was our President John F. Kennedy Jr. So we're engaging in the human race fight, and it's a fight for creational rights. That's my plan. So these 4 things, we got to choose life, we got to know thyself, we got to get our mind, and we got to keep it right. And then we got to turn around and be empowered to live, because living is what we're going to do. So we have to take control of our life. Why? I got to take control of my life because your life depends on it. And you got to take control of your life because my life depends on it. We must tell the stories. Don't let anyone take away the story. You got to tell the stories in order to stay motivated, dedicated, alive, and a relevant force to be reckoned with. Am I talking to somebody yet? I hope so, because this is stuff that I already told you the other day. So I got you through 9. And yep, Irma Lee Davis Cole, 6 years. Lord. But anyway, here we are, because she told me, Brenda, if it's worth doing it all, it's worth doing it with excellence. And let me tell you this, Brenda. And she told me that. I'll never forget, we were at this little church and it was not of an ethnicity that was like us. And I had drank out of a water fountain, some of y'all call a bubbler, and somebody, a little white lady, pulled my ear and said, "Oh, little colored girl, don't you know that you can't drink out of that?" Well, at the same time, I was traumatized because my brother, who's the best singer on the whole planet, and all the women was after him. So I was standing by him, even though, he's 6 years my senior. And so he always had these incredible solo parts, and I'm standing next to him, and he fainted. So he fainted, and I was like, "Oh my God." And my mother took me in the back, and she said, "Brenda, the show must go on." I said, "But Steve," and she said, "Brenda, the show must go on." So I'm trying to make the show go on, Mama. It was 6 years ago yesterday. I'm in my 66th year. It is Route 66, and I'm all the way down in it with my 66 books of the Bible year. But doggone it, you left me. But the show must go on. So let me tell you about some facts, black facts. And I want you to look and then look again. And I want you to see the we collectively, because it's all about the we, because we are the face of the whole world. That is why this particular background, one that I used, I told you decades ago, to speak to a particular group at that time. And I looked, I said, it still works, because do you see you? And if you don't, that means you haven't looked long enough yet. February 10th, 1 to 3. This is a busy day. 1787, Georgia's House Assembly named William Few, Abraham Baldwin, William Pierce, George Walton, William Houston, and Nathaniel Pendleton as Georgia's commissioners to the Philadelphia Constitutional Convention. And in 1854, few individuals had made the impact of their time or left the legacy of their beneficiaries, as did Joseph Charles Price, the founder and first president of Livingston College. He was born February 10, 1854, at Elizabeth City, North Carolina. He rose to fame and world renown as a scholar, Christian gospel preacher, orator, and shining example of selflessness and devotion to his people. He graduated from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania as valedictorian in the class of 1879. Yes, he was Black, and he completed the 3-year theological course in 2 years. So impressive were his early achievements and so dynamic his personality that Bishop James Walker Hood named him to the AME, that's the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church's delegation to the 1881 Ecumenical Methodist Conference, which met in the City Road Chapel of London. Here, Dr. Price, so excited and thrilled, the people assembled until he was persuaded to remain in England and speak on behalf of the fledgling school the denomination had adopted through the General Conference. While in England, he raised $10,000 for the college and returned in 1882, not 1982, not 2082 that we ain't got to yet, but in 1882 to embark upon the task of establishing and securing the institution. So Dr. Joseph Charles Price, 1854 to 1893, was the founder and first president of the college. Hey, a brilliant scholar, great gospel preacher, world famous orator, and advocate for the common man. Dr. Price sought to educate the whole man, his hands, his head, and his heart. And during his 10 years as president of the college, Dr. Price attracted students, friends, and funds through the sheer power of his personality and Christian compassion. His great faith and hope for the future had been epitomized in this famous quote of his: "I do not care how dark the night. I believe in the coming of the morning." Today, let me say to us what he said then, because we are some dark nights, y'all. But I want us to stand with this great gospel preacher, Dr. Price, Reverend Dr. Price. He said, "I do not care how dark the night. I believe the coming of the morning." So he served the college until his death in 1893, and he refused positions of great prestige and attractive salaries in order to devote his life and his energies to the college. He demonstrated faith in his people. He called upon all to seize the opportunity to contribute towards elevating the Black man through generous support of educational enterprises. 3 of Dr. Price's grandsons still survive him. Dr. Price Braithwaite of Los Angeles, California, Dr. Charles P. Sherrill of Salisbury, North Carolina, and Dr. Richard Sherrill of Virginia Beach, Virginia. The annual observance of Founders Day in our churches not only honor his memory, but provide us the opportunity to join in perpetuating his work by supporting the Livingston College. Now, you know, I usually don't give you that much information on the fact, but just setting a tone for February 10th, I think it's important for us to know that way back in 1854, God sent somebody, Joseph Charles Price, Dr. Joseph Charles Price, to let us know that in 2026, February 10th, that the night was going to be dark, but that the morning is coming. Whew. Glory to the name of the Lord. So, in 1787, Georgia's House of Assembly named William Few Abraham Baldwin. Okay, I did this with our brother Livingston. So now I got to go down to 1868. Conservatives, aided by military forces, seized Convention Hall and established effective control over Reconstruction process in Florida. Republican conservatives drafted new constitution, which concentrated political powers in the hands of governor and limited the impact of the Black vote. And in 1907, civil rights activist and politician Grace Towns Hamilton was born in Atlanta, Georgia. She received her undergraduate degree from hometown Atlanta University before completing her master's at Ohio State University. And she held teaching positions at the Atlanta School of Social Work, at Clark College, and at Lemoyne College in Memphis, while maintaining an active interest in the civil rights movement. Hamilton served as executive director of the Atlanta Urban League from 1943 to 1960, and she also sat on the board of the Southern Regional Council of the Governor's Commission of the Status of Women, as well as many other voluntary positions. But she made her most lasting mark by becoming the first African-American woman elected to the Georgia General Assembly in 1975. And she served in Georgia House of Representatives until 1984. And as a chair of the Emory University Political Science Department, it is named in her honor. And in 1927, Attorney Ronald Brown was elected national chairman of the Democratic Party, and he became the first African-American to hold the post. Brown was later appointed Secretary of Commerce under the Clinton administration in 1994. And he served in this capacity until he was killed in 1996. And when he and 32 others died, and I want to make sure that I am. Maybe you all see, you all see, because we doing this real time. We are doing this real time, and I am going to make sure that I do not misquote anything. So here we are. We're going to keep it on moving. He died, he and 32 others, in a plane crash while on a diplomatic mission in Croatia. Thank you to each of you for the impact of February 10th, Black History Month. In 1946, Georgia-born Jackie Robinson, Major League Baseball's first Black player, married Rachel Isom. And in 1964, after 12 years of debate and voting on 125 amendments, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by a vote of 240 to 130, and the bill prohibited any state or local government or public facility from denying access to anyone because of race or ethnic origin. Do you all hear me saying legislation that was put in place? We have to take the reins back. We do not have to break new ground as if the ground has not already been trod. We just got to get our mind back, get our mind right, take our power back. We are a biata and we are self-reliant, therefore interdependent, but we are not our victims of our own circumstances, but rather victors of a time that needs us most. It further gave the U.S. Attorney General the power to bring school desegregation lawsuits. The bill allowed the federal government the power to bring school desegregated lawsuits and to cut off federal funds to companies or states who discriminated against them. It forbade labor organizations or interstate commercial companies from discriminating against workers due to race or ethnic origin. So lastly, the federal government could compile records of denial of voting rights. After passage in the House, the bill went to the Senate, which after 83 days, oh, that sounded like Rosa. That's close to the number of days that we did a boycott. Yeah, after 83 days of debate passed a similar package on June 19th by a vote of 73 to 27. President Lyndon Johnson signed the legislation on July 2nd. Later, future Georgia Governor Lester Maddox will become the first person prosecuted under the Civil Rights Act. In 1966, Andrew Bremer became the first African-American governor of the Federal Reserve Board, as he was appointed by President Johnson. In 1967, the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution went into effect, and that amendment provided that in the case of a vice president in the case of a vice president's becoming president, the new president would name a new vice president subject to confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress, which was very important, which then brought us to the time when we were able to have the first Black president. 1978, reggae artist William Don Omar was born. 1989, Ron Brown became the first African-American to lead a major American political party by being elected chairman of the Democratic National Committee. And in 1992, Alex Haley died, American biographer, scriptwriter, author who became famous with the publication of the novel Roots, which traces his ancestry back to Africa and covers 7 American generations as they were taken slaves to the United States. And the book was adapted into a television series, woke up an interest in genealogy, particularly among African Americans. And Haley himself commented that the book was not so much history as a study of myth making. What Roots gets at, in whatever form, is that it touches the pulse of how alike we human beings are when you get down to the bottom beneath these man-imposed differences. Some of us know we didn't go to school when they said that we would get kicked out when Roots was on. Some of us know that we wrote, I am a playwright, because when Roots came out, then I said, okay, if we wrote it, then I'm going to get suited and booted. And I have a production right now called It's All About Black, which is a 2-hour production that has monologues, has dialogues, has lyrics, has songs, has poetry, has spoken words, has all generations impacted because somebody said, and we won't get to the root of the matter. Let's get to the root of the matter. Thank you, sir. Of all the controversy that came between Blacks among Blacks when it comes to Mr. Alex Haley, what we cannot deny is that he indeed sparked something in us all that created a consequential response that we remain accountable for because we're still here. February 11th, 1964, first Black legal protest in America, pressed by 11 Blacks who petitioned for freedom in New Netherlands, New York. Council of New Netherlands freed the 11 petitioners because they had served the company 17 or either 18 years, and they have been long since promised their freedom on the same footing as other free people in the New Netherlands. And those of you who don't know, New Netherlands is the name of New York before then New York was adopted as its name. 1783, the daughter of former slave born in Cape May, New Jersey, Jarena Lee is considered to be the first female preacher in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And in 1936, she published her autobiography, The Life of Religious Experiences of Jarena Lee, a colored lady, giving an account of her call to preach the gospel. Her maiden name is unknown, and the year of her death is uncertain. She married Joseph Lee, a minister of a Black church in Snow Hill, Lawnside, about 6 miles from Philadelphia, in 1811. Do I have any women preachers in the house? Anybody that will say, "Thank you, ma'am," to a queen that said, "Hey, I might be a woman, but I'm anointed by God. And let me tell you what, you give me a pulpit and a mic, and if you don't, it's still in me and it's going to come out of me. Thank you, ma'am." 1898, L.W. Smith in North Carolina, AME Zion minister and educator, was named minister of Liberia. In 1961, on February 11th, Robert Weaver sworn in as administrator of the Housing and Home Finance Agency, highest federal post to date by a Black American. 1971, Whitney M. Young Jr. was executive director of the National Urban League from 1961 until his tragic untimely death in 1971. For a 10-year period of time, he worked tirelessly to bring the races together, and he joined the tenets of social work, of which he was an outstanding practitioner, to the social activism that brought the Urban League into the forefront of the civil rights arena. Whitney was constantly in search of solutions to the racism that plagued the poor in America and caused Black Americans to be regulated to first-class citizenship in a land that they fought and died for. Hey, wait for somebody, let's take it back, take it back, take it back. A relentless advocate for the poor. He visited rural and urban communities and advocated their cause to the nation. He was a close advisor to President Kennedy and Johnson, and he conferred with President Nixon, helping to shape the policies of 3 administrations and playing a major role in the development of the war on poverty. He was a key figure in bringing the now legendary 1963 March on Washington to fruition, and he was a major force in bringing Black leadership together in a united front for progress. Whitney's eloquent testimony before congressional committees and his powerful appeals to business, professional, and civic leaders helped create an environment in which African Americans forged ahead to win new opportunities. And in 1976, Clifford Alexander Jr. was confirmed as the first African American Secretary of the Army. He will hold that position until the end of President Jimmy Carter's term. I just want to thank these people for their contribution. And as we were talking about Whitney M. Young, just being in that position to be able to say, you know what, it's not only an avocation for Black Americans, second-class citizenship is just unacceptable, because we are all citizens of the globe. And the reason that citizenship is the party line that we're on is a citizenship party line, because it's not just about being Black, it's also about being poor, it's also about being considered relegated to something less than anybody else on the planet. Thank you for your work. And other things happened on February 11th. In 1990, Nelson Mandela's greatest pleasure, his most private moment, is watching the sun set with the music of Handel or Tchaikovsky playing, locked up in his cell during daylight hours, deprived of music. Both these simple pleasures were denied him for decades. Simple pleasures. We are going to take your music away. Oh my goodness, don't get me going. You know I'm a lyricist and a songwriter, and when Zion sings, she travails and she brings forth. But because the devil down here making noise, he's trying to steal our music, take your music back. With his fellow prisoners, concerts were organized when possible, particularly at Christmas time, where they would sing Our Mother Did the Same Thing for Us. And still, Christmas time, we had a lot of fun. Christmas time, we hate when it is done. Wouldn't it be wonderful if it were here to stay? We all would be so happy if each day were Christmas Day. Written by Irma Cole. Nelson Mandela finds music very uplifting and takes a very keen interest not only in European classical music, but also in African choral music and the many talents in South African music. But one voice stands out to him above all, and that is of Paul Robeson, whom he describes as our hero. The years in jail reinforced habits that were already entrenched in him. So he didn't get these habits because of jail, but while he was in there, they became enhanced and they blessed other people. The disciplined eating regime of an athlete began in the 1940s, as did the early morning exercise. And still today, Nelson Mandela is up by 4:30 a.m. This was documented and penned in 2020 when this stat was written, irrespective of how late he had worked the previous evening. By 5 a.m., he had begun his exercise routine that lasted at least for an hour. Breakfast by 6:30, when the day's newspapers were read, the day's work has begun with a standard working day of at least 12 hours. Time management is critical. Nelson Mandela, extremely impatient with unpunctuality. So it's not true that Black people all up late. Regarding it as insulting to those who you are dealing with. So when speaking of the extensive traveling he has undertaken since his release from prison, Nelson Mandela stated this. He said, "I was returned, became a father of the nation. This has placed a great responsibility on my shoulders. And wherever I travel, I immediately began to miss the familiar, the mind dumps, the color and smell that is uniquely South African, and above all, the people. I do not like to be away for any length of time. For me, there is no place like home." Mandela accepted the Nobel Peace Prize as as an accolade to all people who have worked for peace and stood against racism. It was as much an award to his person as it was to the ANC and all South African people in particular. He regards it as a tribute to the people of Norway who stood against apartheid while many of the world was silent. We know it was Norway that provided resources for farming, thereby enabling us to grow food, resources for education and vocational training, and the provision of accommodation over the years in exile. The reward for all these sacrifices will be the attainment of freedom and democracy in South Africa, in an open society which respects the rights of all individuals. Do we hear a song here, y'all? Do we hear a culture shift? Do we hear a furnace getting exchanged and not just a thermostat being adjusted? Vocational training and the provision of accommodation over the years in exile. The reward of all the sacrifices will be the attainment of freedom and democracy in South Africa, in an open society which respects the right for all individuals. That goal is now in sight, and we have to thank the people and the governments of Norway and Sweden for their tremendous role that they played. Personal taste breakfast of plain porridge with fresh fruit and fresh milk. A favorite is the traditionally prepared meat of a freshly slaughtered sheep, and the delicacy amarhue fermented cornmeal. In 1996, Penn's bachelorette speaker is the Right Reverend Barbara Clementine Harris, a Philadelphian who was the first woman ever to become a bishop in the Anglican Communion. Bishop Harris entered the priesthood after a long and successful career in public and community relations in Philadelphia between 1949 and 1977. On graduation from Charles Morse Price School, she joined Joseph V. Baker Associates, Inc., and rose to the level of the president. She also held senior posts with the Sun Company from 1967 to 1977. She began her theological studies at Villanova University, studying later at the Urban Theological Unit in Sheffield, England. She then graduated from the Pennsylvania Foundation of Pastoral Counseling and was ordained a deacon in 1979 and a priest in 1980, only a year apart. Let me tell you, we can pause for the pause and shout right now. Before she was consecrated a bishop in 1989, she had been priest in charge of St. Augustine of Hippo in Norristown, serving also as a prison chaplain and a counsel to industrial corporations for public policy issues and social concerns. Named executive director of the Episcopal Church Publishing Company in 1984, she was also a publisher of The Witness, and she held the additional post of interim rector of Philadelphia's Church of the Advocate in 1988. Bishop Harris is a member of the Union of Black Episcopalians, and among other activities, she represents the National Episcopal Church on the board of the Prisoner Visitation and Support Committee and is the vice president of the Episcopal City Mission of the Diocese of Massachusetts. I'm just saying, shout out to the queens. Thank you, Queen. Thank you, Queen. And thank you, Queen Deaconess Bishop. Thank you, Ma'am Clementine Right Reverend Harris. And then when I go back to our days here, I got it. That was February 11th. So I'm giving you the presentations, but I'm gonna cover a couple more days, and then we're gonna do what we do, and I'm gonna let you go because I know you're giving me 1 second for every minute, and I'm trying to wrap it up. So now we go back. All right, February 12th. 1973, Congress passed the first fugitive slave law to implement the provisions of the Constitution. It is stated that to reclaim an escaped slave, a master needed only to go before a magistrate and provide oral or written proof of ownership. The magistrate would then issue an order for the arrest of the slave. The slave was not given a trial in court or allowed to present evidence on their own behalf, including proof of having previously earned their freedom. Many northern states passed personal liberty laws that granted a fugitive slave rights, such as trial by jury, but other states, such as Pennsylvania, passed strong kidnapping laws which functioned to punish slave catchers. Edward Prigg was convicted of kidnapping in Pennsylvania after capturing a slave family. Prigg took his case to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court issued a double-edged decision. It declared Pennsylvania's law unconstitutional, but it also ruled that the states did not have to use their facilities to enforce the fugitive slave law. This led to some states passing new personal liberty laws prohibiting the use of state facilities for the enforcement of the fugitive law. After the first fugitive slave law was passed, lawyer Solomon P. Chase was just starting on his anti-slavery career. He became an avid supporter of abolitionist causes, which he met the editor of an abolitionist newspaper, James Burney, in 1836. The year after Chase and Burney had met, Burney's housekeeper, Matilda, a part of an African female, she was captured as a runaway slave. Burney had been unaware that she was a fugitive. So despite Chase's defense, which denounced the fugitive slave law as unconstitutional, the authorities took Matilda back to New Orleans, where she was sold at an auction. Somebody cry with me. Although Chase moved on to defend Burney, who was charged with harboring a fugitive slave. Chase took the case to the Supreme Court, where the charges were dismissed because Burney did not know Matilda was a slave when he hired her. Chase continued to work defending fugitive slaves and those who aided them. Although he never won a case defending a runaway, he became known as the Attorney General of fugitive slaves. The fugitive slave law angered many free blacks residing throughout the United States, and in January of 1800, a group petitioned for Congress to repeal the fugitive slave law and abolish slavery. This petition and others like it, sent by free blacks, was predictably ignored by Congress on the basis that blacks were not recognized by the Constitution and thus not their equals, which then made the cases irrelevant. 1865, Henry Highland Garnet was the first Black to speak in the Capitol, deliver a memorial sermon at the abolition of slavery as services in the House of Representatives. Henry Highland Garnet was born a slave in Newmarket, Maryland in 1815, and he escaped in 1824, made his way to New York, where he studied at the Oneida Theological Institute of Whitesboro before becoming a Presbyterian minister in Troy, New York. So we see here being born in 1850 and escaped in 1824. If we know how to count, that means he is only 9 years old. Garnet joined the Anti-Slavery Society and became one of the organizers leading lecturers. However, in 1843, he was disowned by the society when he called upon slaves to murder their masters. Garnet served as a pastor in Jamaica from 1853 to 1856, but he returned to the United States during the Civil War, and he demanded that Abraham Lincoln permit the enlistment of African American soldiers. And in 1864, Garnet was appointed pastor of the 15th Street Presbyterian Church in Washington. And during this period, he became the first African American to deliver a sermon before the House of Representatives. He also worked for the Freedmen's Bureau, where he was involved in developing programs to help former slaves. In 1881, Henry Highland Garnet was appointed minister to Liberia. However, he died 2 months later on February 13, 1882. 1882. 1869, Isaac Burns Murphy, jockey, dies. 1882, Black rights activist Henry Highland Garnet dies soon after he was appointed the U.S. ambassador to Liberia. 1900, for a Lincoln birthday celebration, James Weldon Johnson writes the lyrics for lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, with music by his brother, J. Rosemount. The song is first sung by 500 children in Jacksonville, Florida, and it became known as the Negro National Anthem, and it still is. And if you don't know it, shame on you. I don't care what color you are. Help us in your solidarity seconds to unite around an effort to replace noise with music in 1900. Andrew Bremer became the first African American governor, and he was appointed by President Lyndon Johnson. February 12th, some other stuff happened. 1909, founded in New York City by a group of Black and white citizens committed to social justice, what we know as the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is the nation's largest and strongest civil rights organization. So now we get numbers, and guess what the numbers look like? The numbers look like the biota. The NAACP's principal objective is to ensure the political, education, social, and economic equality of minority group citizens of the United States, and to eliminate race prejudice. Eliminate. The NAACP seeks to remove all barriers of racial discrimination through democratic processes. This mission is accomplished by seeking the enactment and enforcement of federal, state, local laws securing civil rights, and by informing the public of the adverse effects of racial discrimination. Is anybody a card-carrying member that's listening to me on this platform? From school desegregation, fair housing, employment, and voter registration to health and equal economic opportunity, the NAACP, working successfully with the allies of all races, plays a significant role in establishing legal precedents in order to improve the quality of life in America's downtroddenness. For more than 91 years, NAACP has been built on the individual and collective courage of thousands of people of all races. Now, this is 1909, and we're in 2026. So we do recognize that it is even much stronger for much longer, and represents all nationalities, races, all religious denominations who are united around one premise alone, and that is that all men and women are created equal. Not because of the NAACP, but because of the creator who created them, and an organization being willing to be strong enough, sound enough, diverse enough to stand up and call out. Nothing more powerful than the facts of how the existence of the oldest civil rights organization has changed the face of history for this country. And despite the threats of violence and official governmental policies that were racist, the NAACP has continued and will continue to persevere. And it will continue to persevere because it is not about the organization, it is about the organization being placed into the organism of the biata, so that then we can get down to power, because biata plus solidarity equals power. And that equals change. In 1930 in Tuskegee, Alabama, the Rosenwald Fund made grants to the Alabama State Board of Health to help the cause of a study of syphilis in African American men living in rural Georgia and Alabama. Thus would begin a 4-decade-long study of syphilis without treatment. Over 400 men were allowed to carry the disease without medical treatment for nearly 40 years. So that is, many people do not understand the destructive approach of this disease. Men were allowed to live with it and transmit it without treatment because they were part of a study. That is, I am a researcher scientist. Now, you want to get me on a wagon, let's get on it. I'm trying not to get on a soapbox, but I ain't got no soap, because if it was soap on the box, and I would slide off. And let me tell you something. This is when we get toe to toe and nose to nose, because what we do not do is use people to demonstrate how destructive a disease shall be. Let me say we should not, because we do all the time. But anyway, all right, Brent. Get my own self in check. Several government agencies, including the Federal Public Health Services and the Center of Disease Control, yes, because the CDC was in place then, they participated in this unethical study, and it was kept a secret until 1972, almost when I graduated from high school. Therefore, I did research on it as a teenager when a newspaper reporter disclosed it, and then we had to go back and dig it, because I had people in my family, in our community, that we watched die from that disease, and their deaths were preventable. 1934, on this day, February 12th, William Belton Russell, better known as Bill Russell. I actually had an opportunity to meet him because he was friends with my uncle, McKinley Deacon Davis, who was a Harlem Globetrotter, just so many great things. He was a player coach of the Boston Celtics basketball team in 1968 and 1969, and he was born in Monroe, Louisiana. I tell you what, he was one of those people I looked up as that. This must be what they talk about when they talk about successful Black man Bill Russell. 1939, Augustus Nathaniel Lushington became the first African American to earn a doctor of veterinary medicine, DVM. Let me tell you, I got the best vet on the planet. And I want you to know that Dr. Maynard Wright, if you ever had a pet, let me tell you, he takes care of anything that is considered eligible to be a pet without discrimination. And the people who come to him are from every walk of life, and you can't meet nobody with a pet and say Dr. Wright's name without them knowing who he is. Thank you, sir. But the one who paved the way was in 1939, the first African American that earned his doctoral degree from the University of Pennsylvania in 1897. He died on this day. But Wright's Brown Deer Animal Hospital. Woo, thank you, sir. You've helped us all in so many ways. 1948, First Lieutenant Nancy C. Lefenant, I want to make sure I'm doing that right, forgive me, became the first Black accepted in regular Army nursing corps. And I sure need to get that right, because thank you, Black nurses. Black nurses, I am a lifelong National Black Nurses Association member. Sure am, card carrying am right now. 1952 Congressional Medal of Honor awarded posthumously, which means after he died, to Sergeant Cornelius H. Charlton for heroism in Korea. 1956 first Black late night talk show host in history, Arsenio Hall, was born. 1962 bus boycott started in Macon, Georgia. 1983 pianist U.B. Blake died in Brooklyn, New York, 4 days after celebrating his 100th birthday. Thank you. Centurion. Some of us have been blessed to have centurions. I certainly had one. My mom's dad. Thank you, Senior Mr. McKinley Davis, for being the first Black man working on the Illinois Railroad, recruited from Canton, Mississippi. February 13th. 1635, America's first public school, Boston Latin School, opened in Boston. Black students were excluded from attending. And in 1818, Absalom Jones, the first Black American Episcopal priest, was ordained in the United States. He died on that day, 1882. The death of Henry Highland Garnett, 66, diplomat and Protestant leader in Monrovia, Liberia. We heard about him before. 1892, first African-American performers, the World Fair Colored Opera Company appeared at Carnegie Hall. 1907, Wendell P. Dabney established the Union. The Cincinnati, Ohio paper's motto is, "For no people can become great without being united. For in union, there is strength." Give him credit. Wendell P. Dabney establishes the Union. The Cincinnati, Ohio paper's motto is, "For no people can become great without being united. For in union, there is strength," and literacy. So you need to read about it. In 1957, Southern Christian Leadership Conference was organized in New Orleans, meeting with Martin Luther King Jr. as the president. And in 1970, the New York Stock Exchange admitted its first Black member, Joseph Searles. And in 1973, Gertrude E. Downing and William Desjardins corner cleaner attachment. Do you hear what I said? This is a patent. Patent number 3,715,772 on February 13, 1973. Corner cleaner attachment. I'm just telling you, one thing that we do know how to do, we know how to clean, we know how to cook, and we know how to patent stuff. And you better go look it up, because you will be surprised at that 3.7 million, of which there are many more now since 1973, have an African American attached to their accomplishments. And that is February 13th. And I want to end on Valentine's Day, because it is an important one, and because we look at the blood of it, and because we look at the love of it, and because we look at the commercialism of it, and even though it has a really bloody origin, that I'm not going to get into, let me just tell you what happened on February 14th. And that's going to be it, because guess what? Hashtag all people matter. Hashtag Queen Time Machine. Hashtag Kingdom Time Zone. Hashtag the Black fight is always for human rights. Hashtag solidarity until We are all free. Hashtag 86,400. Hashtag the order of no borders. And hashtag still reaching for the dream. Hashtag free at first, not free at last. February 14th, 1760, Richard Allen was born into slavery in Philadelphia. He was a minister and educator, writer, and one of America's most active and influential Black leaders. And in 1974, he founded the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the first independent Black denomination in the United States. Yes, 1760, 1760. That's just important because it's February 14th and the year 1760, that adds up to 14. So just in case you wonder, because your Queen Time Machine does do the numbers, and let me tell you, 14 ain't nothing but regal royal. It's a double completion. And then when you put a double completion, it's a quadruple completion. And he founded the AME Church in that year, on that day. 1817, possible birthday of Frederick Douglass, abolitionist and orator, born into slavery as Frederick Vail Douglass, purchased his freedom in 1845 and went on to become the greatest abolitionist of all time. I apologize right now because I have a brother who right now is Frederick Douglass. I know he's not reincarnated, but he is the best historical human representative walking around with Frederick Douglass. And he would know if this year is right or not. So, Frederick, I can't call on Steve until March. I know that, but just let us know if we got the year right and the date. 1867, Morehouse College was organized in Augusta, Georgia. The institution was later moved to Atlanta. Did you know that? New registration law in Tennessee abolished racial distinctions in voting. 1879, Blount Kelso Bruce became the first Black person to preside over the Senate. When he was called to the chair on this date in 1879, Bruce presided in the absence of Vice President William A. Wheeler. Did you know that? In 1920, Mamie Smith became the first Black woman to make a record on this date. In 1920, she recorded "You Can't Keep a Good Man Down" and this thing called love. Thank you, ma'am, because maybe that's what we're trying to advance right now. 1926, Monetta Sleet Jr., Pulitzer Prize winner, photographer, was born on this date. 1926, Sleet was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in 1969 for a photograph taken of Mrs. Coretta Scott King and daughter Bernice at Dr. King's funeral. Wow. 1936, National Negro Congress organized at Chicago, meeting attended by 817 delegates representing more than 500 organizations. 1936, so that's a 10 and a 9, and then you put a 10 and a 9 together, you get 19, which is a 1 and a 9, which is a 10, which completes a cycle, which means a new one starts, and that's the import of that event. And in 1946, entertainer and dancer Gregory Hines was born. Some of us still try to tap and scat because of Gregory. Thank you, sir. Hashtag all people matter. All people matter. And here we are. I hope that you are enjoying when the time comes. This February 14th, but we started at 10. So we did February 10th, February 11th, February 12th, February 13th, and February 14th. And we're going to come back with February 15th through the 20th with some more facts. But between now and then, we are facing the face of us all, and we're seeing our future through the lens of the right now fleeting past, and the parity of solidarity 1 second at a time is our commitment to each other, because it's his story. It's his story. It's her story. It's our story. It's your story. It's my story. It's their story. But when you look at this, do you see what I see? Because what I see is symbiotic oneness, like-minded indivisibility, deliberate alignment, respecting individuality, travailing yearns, and let it yearn, and let it yearn. The travail, the individuality, the respect, the alignment, the deliberateness, the indivisibility, the like-mindedness, the oneness, and the symbiotics of solidarity seconds. Hear the sound of the black, because it's all one. And what I'm asking in these 65, and I'm gonna make sure it's 66 minutes, is for 1 second. 66 seconds of standing with me for global safety, peace, justice for all, and all means all. We can, because we have, because we do, because we will. Look and look again, so you can see that collectively we are the face of the entire world, because it is our faith and our face that we will use to move forward. Choose it, declare it, express it, be free at last, be free at first, until soon. Agape and shout.